All right, allow me to share my screen, dear brothers and sisters. All right. Bismillah wa alhamdulillah wa salawat wa salam ala rasulullah wa alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear beloved brothers and sisters, colleagues, esteemed students and practitioners and scholars of the field of Islamic psychology and Muslim mental health, dear members of ISIP. We're so honored to have you all with us. From the behalf of ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology, I want to send my Eid greetings to all of you. Eid Mubarak, inshallah. I hope you guys had a beautiful Eid filled with suhbah, joy, and dhikrullah together with your family and loved ones. And I hope you guys had a great Ramadan, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to exit Ramadan in a better shape as we entered it, inshallah, and allow us to continue living that holistic lifestyle as we do, hopefully during the holy month of Ramadan, throughout the whole year. And as we know, the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to prepare for Ramadan 6 months in advance, and they used to 6 months after Ramadan ask Allah to accept their ibadah and forgive them for their shortcomings. So, alhamdulillah, they were always in a state of Ramadan in that sense, the whole year. So, may Allah allow us to embody the ways that the Sahaba and the righteous companions of the Prophet ﷺ used to engage with Ramadan and all the ibadah and worship related to Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for all of our brothers and sisters in Palestine and Palestine. We're sending our du'as to them and to all brothers and sisters who are suffering due to genocides or occupation or colonization or wars or natural disasters or earthquakes or floodings. And we have seen throughout the years many of our siblings, many brothers and sisters suffering. May Allah make it easy for all, and may Allah bring relief and ease to all, inshallah. And may Allah give justice and self-determination to our beloved brothers and sisters in Palestine and Gaza, inshallah ta'ala. So without any further ado, we will start the lecture today for everyone here. My name is Sayyid Jamaluddin Miri. I am one of the co-founders of ISIP, and I serve as the executive director of the movement. I'm also here with you throughout the international lecture series that we have with ISIP twice a month, where we always invite some of the leading scholars and practitioners within the field of Islamic psychology and Muslim mental health. So today, we're very honored to have with us Dr. Kenza Saadi, who is one of our colleagues and member of ISIP. She's actually one of those who are leading our neurodiversity team in ISIP and also our trauma healing task force. We usually do once a week before, and now I think it's once a month, if I'm not mistaken, our healing resilience circles, where Sister Kenza has done an excellent job in facilitating these spaces. Today's lecture will be about Islamic art as contemplative art. And a lot of people have showed interest for this topic and theme. We have previously done similar lectures in connected to this topic and theme with Professor Francesca and other of our esteemed colleagues. So I really recommend you guys to check ISIP's YouTube channel to also listen to these lectures. Already now, I would like to announce to you all, we're going to start a task force within the ISIP, where we're going to work with sacred arts and Islamic arts and its connection with health and well-being. So we will do some works related to this, both workshops, retreats, and curriculums and scholarly work as well. This will be part of ISIP's different task forces and also part of the Shifa Institute, which is ISIP's initiative for health and well-being from a holistic Islamic paradigm. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Today's agenda will be to recite Surah Al-Fatiha. We will start with that just to get the blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will go through some guidelines and just some brief presentation about ISIP. And then we will have the lecture with Dr. Kenza. And after that, we will do some Q&As. And we will have some closing du'as, hopefully as well, inshallah ta'ala. All right, a little bit about the Zoom etiquettes, dear brothers and sisters. Always have your cameras on if possible. It's always nice to connect with one another and each other and see each other. We're such a diverse movement with members from all over the world, so it's always exciting to connect. If you want, you can use the gallery view. That's actually a good option that Zoom offers, where you can see all of the participants, kind of like in a nice halaqah and circle. No recording or screenshots are allowed, brothers and sisters. We will upload the recording of the lecture within a couple of weeks on ISIP's YouTube channel. This will be shared with all of you through our social medias and WhatsApp groups. And for all of you who registered to this lecture today, you will get an email with the link to the YouTube channel and the lecture, inshallah. Keep muted at all times. All questions you guys can ask in the Zoom chat. So the Zoom chat will be open throughout the session for you guys to just ask questions, and myself and my colleagues will also share some beneficial resources from ISIP in the Zoom chat throughout the session, inshallah. As I mentioned before, please rename yourself if you would. You can add your name and also the country where you reside. It's always nice to connect and see the diversity that our movement is encapsulating. You can, as I mentioned, utilize the chat option. And if you need any live transcriptions, please press the More button at the in the lower end and lower part of the Zoom application, and then request for that, and we will get access to that for you guys, inshallah. All right, a little bit about ISIP, the International Students of Islamic Psychology, the brothers and sisters. We try to be an inclusive space designed to connect people with diverse backgrounds, educationally and ethnically, interested in the field of Islamic psychology. So we have a lot of mental health professionals, a lot of scholars, alim, alimas, but also students and seekers of knowledge generally as part of our movement. We aim to disseminate knowledge, share resources, and discuss best practices in a free and accessible manner. So everything we do in ISIP is free of charge so that you guys can benefit from the sacred knowledge of Islamic psychology. We also want to be a platform to enable further development of people's personal and professional interests, studies, and understanding of Islamic psychology within their communities and countries of origin. So as I mentioned earlier, we're going to establish this task force discussing sacred arts and its connection to health and well-being. Besides that, we have local and regional chapters all over the world, and we have a lot of different task forces working with different objectives, from neurodiversity to book clubs to sister groups to brother groups, you name it. So if you guys want to join, we will share how you guys can join in the Zoom chat as well. And if you guys want to establish any local regional chapter in your country, if we do not have any chapter there, feel free to reach out to us, and we will be happy to facilitate that under your excellent leadership. Ways to connect with us is, for example, through our Islamic Psychology WhatsApp groups, and we will share those links in the Zoom chat. You can also become a member of ISIP via our website at sorry, brothers and sisters, foundation, where you can get access to our digital library free of charge, of course. And a membership in ISIP is free of charge as well. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can also follow us on Instagram and other social media channels as well. Just check our handle, ISIP_global. This is just a brief QR code to our Islamic Psychology WhatsApp groups. And now we're going to present the main person for today's venue and lecture, Sister Dr. Kenza Saadi. She holds a BA from Cornell University and a PhD from Columbia University. She was a humanitarian worker for many years, worked in many war zones for over 20 years. And she is now turned to be more active within arts history and also speaking about beauty through teaching art history. She also publishes poetry, and she advises and conduct counseling for people with different within the neurodivergent spectrum, and their caretakers as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, she's part of ISIP's Neurodiversity Task Force as well. So without any further ado, this is just our feedback forms. I will stop sharing my screen, brothers and sisters, and I'll just pass it over now to Sister Kenza. We're very honored to have you with us, sister. So feel free to take over, and the floor is yours, as we say. The digital floor is yours. Most welcome.
Thank you. Let me set this up. There we go. All right. Can you all hear me? I hope you can.
Yes, dear sister.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
I won't be looking at the chat if people don't mind during the presentation. Otherwise, I'll get totally distracted.
I will help you with that, sister. You don't need to think about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, welcome, everyone. I feel all of you are in my house, so it's a real honor. Today is going to be a bit special. Actually, you're going to be traveling, and so I'm going to take you along with me to many places where I hope we can find light and beauty. Our hearts are broken as they are with a lot of the events that are going on around the world. And as Maulana Rumi says, you know, light enters through the wounds. So let's hope that some of that light and some of that beauty can enter our hearts during this next hour and a half. I'll be illustrating every single slide, and about 95% of the pictures are mine, most humbly. This is a picture I took of the Bibi Khanim Mosque in Samarkand. I lived in Uzbekistan for 2 years, and it's a very special place for me. And actually, I think there are like 3 slides with pictures from the Bibi Khanim Mosque. So I thought it would be nice to open with it. And for the ones who read Arabic, it is La ilaha illallah wa Muhammad Rasulullah. Before we get into the lecture, I want to start with 3 slides. The first one is this ayah from the Quran, which is God has endeared faith to you and made it beautiful to or in your hearts, depending how you want to really translate. وَزَيَّنَّهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. Fi means in, but this is really the sense of faith becoming beautiful to your heart, to yourself. As we will enter Islamic art, you will find that beauty surrounds us, and beauty is in what we see around us, the dhahir, but it's also within us, al-batin, within our hearts. And this is very important to understand. The second one is 8 seconds. This is a fountain in Fatih Mosque in Istanbul, for the ones who've been there. I thought it was very peaceful, very serene, very tranquil. Just to give you a short background, I took this small video about, it was last August. I was on my way back from Afghanistan. I hadn't been to see my family since before the Taliban took over. So it was a very emotional trip. It was a hard trip. It was 45 degrees all the time. So I thought that this fountain just refreshed me and refreshed my heart and refreshed my soul. So I will share it with you, if I may, for about 8 seconds. This, they say, is the noise of, is the sound of paradise. Sorry. The next slide is a bait, 2 verses from a poem by Hafiz, with my humble translation from Farsi. And in here you find 3 things that we will see throughout Islamic art: beauty, light, and love. And the way I translated, for the ones who read Farsi, tajalli, which also is a word in Arabic, is I put exhaled, because when you read the rest of the ghazal, this is the idea you have, that when God created the world, he kind of exhaled. No, it's this nafs, it's this ability to cover everything with his compassion. And when that beauty appeared, when that light appeared, of course, love appeared and inflamed the entire world, no? Atashbih. So it's all of this, we will find it, inshallah, in the next, in this presentation. So what are we going to do for this presentation? It's going to be separated in 3 parts. One, I will explain some key concepts, which a lot of you do understand, but the way I will look at them is in order for us to arrive at what Islamic art really means, all right? So, and some of you don't know them, so I will explain to them, Tawheed, the Quran, the fact that it's a non-iconic art. We will look into what makes it contemplative, the idea of light, the idea of beauty, and the idea of qualitative transformation of the place we are in. You know, what makes a place sacred as opposed to non-sacred? And means of contemplation. So there are many. I will do 1 slide, only 1 slide on sacred writing, because otherwise it would be like a whole other lecture, which we don't have time, but I really wanted to talk about it, so we'll have 1 slide. And then we look at sacred spaces and how you actually approach them, understand them. And I will share with you I think about 15 slides with different places, and you will have to react to them, how you feel about these places. So, Bismillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let's go. So the idea of Tawheed. So Tawheed is La ilaha illallah. No, there's no God except God. It's the absolute oneness of God, as you all know. I've put some ayah of the Quran. It's very important when we approach art, especially when we want to compare Islamic art to, let's say, Christian art or Buddhist art or Hindu art. The idea that this Tawheed, it's not that there's only one God as opposed to many other gods, no? But it's more than that. It's the absolute transcendent nature of God. He is beyond good and evil. He is beyond anything we might imagine. And everything we may think it is or imagine it is not. So he is beyond mental conceptualization. So you might understand that when we talk about art, it's hard to kind of put together this with whatever sacred art might mean, especially if we take into consideration other kinds of art. This is a picture I took at the Hagia Sophia Mosque. As you can see, I've always putting some details on every single photo, so you realize when it was made or constructed and how it became. It went back into being a mosque just recently in 2020. The other notion is the notion of attribute. And this is a very kind of refined issue that one has to understand. And for that, I've put from the Quran, but I've also put two quotes from Nahjul Balagha from Imam Ali. Nahjul Balagha means the peak of eloquence. So here, not only do we have beautiful words, but they're said in a beautiful way about beauty. So the idea here that was retaken by Ibn Arabi much later on is that the attributes do not define God. Okay, as we see in the Quran, it's written, the best names belong to him, but he is not the attribute. Because once you limit him to an attribute, whichever it might be, Al-Aziz, the powerful, it limits him to that, right? So what you have to understand is an attribute is just one of the things that belong to him, that can characterize him, but they don't limit him. So the way we can understand the attributes is through the manifestations of divinity, right? So these ayat, these manifestations, these signs, it is through them that we might understand the attributes of God, right? So this is a very important distinction to make, especially when you talk about sacred art. The picture I put is from the Great Mosque of Cordoba. And as you see in the style, all the writing and what is on the wall is done with very small mosaics. This is 100% Byzantine art. So understand that Islamic art is not what we call ex nihilo. It didn't come out from nowhere, no? It took on the culture within which it expanded. So at the time around the Mediterranean in the 8th century, the most important art was Byzantine art, and actually started changing only in the 11th century. But Byzantine art was basically the model that everybody used. So this is why you have these very small mosaics that form the calligraphy that you see on the walls of the Great Mosque of Cordoba. After the attribute, we understand that Islamic art is non-iconic, meaning we do not have pictures, if you want, that are used to pray. An icon is not just a picture. It's not just an illustration. An icon is something that you use to pray. It's kind of a gate, an open, a gate towards the divine. No, if you have, let's say, an icon of the Virgin Mary, the idea is when you pray towards the Virgin Mary, she will transmit your message to God. The same through the Hindu deities. So we don't have that idea in Islam. And the only strictly prohibited representation is the one of God, because as we said earlier, he's transcendent, and everything we might imagine him to be is not. Now, representation of prophets, all of the prophets, are multiple, okay, in all Islamic art. Either in writing, I mean, if you read the Qasida Burda, or you look at these hilayye, which are absolutely beautiful pieces of art that you find during the Ottoman Empire, and you still find today in Turkey, give a precise description of the physical, the outward appearance of the Prophet Muhammad and his character. And many, if you go to Turkish houses, many of them have this hilaye. You will see that there are very concise description. On the right, I've put illustration of a manuscript of the Mi'raj from the Khamsa, Panjganj of Ganjavi. Sorry, I didn't write it there. Nizami Ganjavi. And here it's only starting with the Safavid dynasty that you start having a white veil in front of the face of the Prophet. But you look at any other illustration of any other manuscripts, you will actually see the face of the Prophet. And it was very popular all across the Ottoman Empire, the Persian Empire, the Mughal Empire. Some of the most beautiful illustration actually are from what is today Uzbekistan. And so this is not something that is uncommon. There are representations of the Prophet. But as I said, it's not, you don't pray towards them. They're just illustrations. The other notion before we get in that you have to understand is, of course, the Quran. So the Quran is the word of God. So it's not just a history book, no, or a legal book with a bunch of anecdotes about prophets or kind of injunctions from God. The Quran, just like God, is transcendent in and of itself. It cannot be imitated, right? It's this concept of i'jaz in Arabic. So this is why you can translate, for instance, semantics or ideas, but the divine essence of it cannot be translated. So you can understand that in terms of art, you have this book that you cannot translate, which divine essence you cannot portray. So then what happens, in terms of art? How do you express it? How can you go beyond what is just written? So this is what happens. So one, God is transcendent. He's limitless. He's beyond description. He's beyond representation. Okay. His words are transcendent. They cannot be imitated, and they do not define him, as in God, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what do you do with this? How can you express this beauty that you want, to portray around you? So the idea is, if you can follow, if I may, what I wrote in that square that has the dashed sides. So the idea is to contemplate his creation and the reality of life, okay? What we might call katharat. Katharat means multiplicity. So you see everything around you. And if you read the Quran, it's the red mountains and the black mountains and the way that, the clouds form and the multiplicity of planets and the multiplicity of races and religions and beliefs, right? So these are all the katharat. So once you contemplate that, you come to understanding, ma'rifah. And through that, you can have faith, which by faith, I mean ubudiyah, which is the total abandonment of self, which is the complete submission, which is what Islam is all about, and iman, of course, which is faith. And from that, you return to wahdat, to the oneness, to the tawheed, to your fitra. So art provides the means of contemplation. Art enables you to contemplate his creation, right? And so then you can go through that whole process. And the two most important notions is obviously light and beauty, and we will understand that in the next few slides. As illustration, I've put the Dome of the Rock in Quds. I've put a few dates. Know that it collapsed in the 11th century after a very strong earthquake. That actually many of the mosques that are today, for instance, in Gaza, collapsed around the same period in all of what is today Palestine. And it was completely rebuilt, not from scratch, but they respected what was before, and it was obviously embellished in a beautiful way during the Ottoman period. The calligraphy that you see here, if I may be here, is Ayat Kursi. So if you look very closely, I think it starts here. La ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. No, it starts right here. Ayat Kursi. This is the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, and absolutely, I've had the privilege of being there. Absolutely amazingly beautiful. So the two notions I spoke about that will help us kind of enter into art. First is light. No, light is nur ala nur. Why is light so important? Is that it is a divine reality and it is ineffable. Ineffable simply means that it cannot be expressed by words. We can comprehend it in abstraction, but the only way you can actually understand light is if you understand darkness. No, you understand it through the opposite. And this is a whole contemplation issue. And if you read Maulana Rumi or Hafiz, you will find that this issue of contrast. And once you understand contrast, then you understand that the only one that does not have an opposite is God. Right? So it brings you ma'rifah just by looking, as I said earlier, at this multiplicity around you. And it's very subtle. And this is why I've put this these three understandings of light. There are many ways to understand light. And these words are from the Quran. So you have different ways of unveiling, if you want, that divine essence. So if you look at light, you have, I just put three notions. I could have put much more. You have the idea of baha, sana, and majd. So you have brilliance, resplendescence, and glory. These are three ways to talk about light. These are very subtle ways that we understand innately the description of light, of the divine. So by looking at it that way, you understand also what the subtlety of the divine essence is. No? Remember, as I put in red, art can help lead one to the inexpressible, not represented. So you're not representing light as such. You're not representing God, but you're representing his essence through all these different shades. As an illustration, and this, you're going to be meeting my family. I'm originally from Morocco. So this is on my mother's side. So my mother is Merinid, from the Merinid dynasty. So this is a picture I took at the Madrasa Bouinania in Fez, because I thought it would represent very well this idea of the light and this door or this window that enters in one of the cells or the rooms of the madrasa. And here you see the play with depth and you see the play with contrast. And as I said, the idea of opposites help you understand that the one who doesn't have any opposite is God, subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second notion is the one of beauty. And just with that, I could speak for an hour, and I will try not to. So I shall be brief so we can get into the art. So beauty is husn, all right? And Islam by itself draws one towards beauty. Okay, if you read the Quran, it urges you to look at the world, to admire its magnificence, not to ponder, so that you might understand it. You look how everything has a perfect form, right? And you look at I mean, not all roses are red, not all flowers. I mean, imagine if he had made all of nature gray, and it's not, no? It has multiplicity of colors and multiplicity of forms and shapes. He asks you to look at the clouds and how rain is formed in this beautiful sky that has no rifts in it, right? But beauty, and this is where it is important, and this is where another lecture could be conducted, it's not just the external, the zahir, it's also the batin. Why? Because you cannot have beauty without proper ethical conduct. No? And so the idea of what is called al-haqiqat al-insan, which is this deep reality of the human being, no? It's this beauty that is contained into the heart, not just how your hair looks or what you wore today or what kind of earrings you wore, but it's basically that ethical conduct within you. So the way it works, when you think about beauty, and even when you think about zahir, when you think about a building or you think about a manuscript of the Quran, think that it is the way, it's this tajalli, no? This unveiling or this theophany, if you want to call it, use a complicated word, of the divine qualities, and which are mercy, love, beauty, wisdom, compassion, tolerance, loving kindness, truth, forgiveness. These are all, by the way, what are called the qualities of the heroic soul, no? Which is called marwa, which defines the concept of futua, no? This concept of chivalry, which was defined this way. And the first one to have defined it is Imam Ja'far Sadiq, no? And from there, it came this whole concept of muruwa, no? Of this spiritual battle that we have. So beauty is within us, and it's also around us. And art has the purpose of wakening up that beauty, all right? You cannot even consider beauty if you're not yourself beautiful in your heart. And as the Quran says, it is not the eyes that see, but it is the heart. So it is through that you might understand the beauty around you. And you will understand this in a minute once we get into spaces. But to summarize all that, so sacred art is not necessarily images. No, you do not need the portrait of somebody, of God, let's say like this old man with this big white beard and very powerful that you see in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican to understand God. The divinity or the divine essence can be very simple, such as silence and the materialization of silence. What it does is that it transforms qualitatively the place where you are and how you feel. So Islamic art is a means of contemplation. If we use mosaics, for instance, I put this one from the absolutely beautiful Jame Mosque in Yazd in Iran. This is right at the entrance of the mosque, kind of on the left side. The mosque is, I think, one of the most beautiful I've ever been in. And so through mosaics, through calligraphy, through gardens, through spaces, through music, like the Ney, the idea is to invite man, and I'm reading, to fix his mind on something outside himself, right? So you can contemplate. And through abstract forms, through rhythms, through patterns that repeat themselves, through light and shade, through different columns, through the feeling of infinity in a space, for instance, what happened is all of your mental fixation dissolve. And I've put it akin to wind or to flowing water. And there you can really enter a state of contemplation, where you can really do dhikr properly, where you can pray and it's not mechanical and ritualistic. When you pick up the Quran and you read it and you really understand. When you look at the sky and you marvel at the creation. Okay. So Islamic art is contemplative. It is not a mean of worship. And this is the main difference between Islamic art and other kind of sacred art, whether it be Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, whichever way you want to look at it. All right? So now let's go into actually examples. As I said at the beginning, unfortunately, we don't have much time. So I will just put one slide on sacred writing, and then the rest will be sacred spaces. And inshallah, in the future, we can do something about sacred writing. I put this picture of the Poi Kalan in Bukhara, an absolutely gorgeous place. I fell in love with Bukhara, maybe because of the Persian culture was so preeminent. This looks like lace. It's really gorgeous. Just a reminder as we go in, tafakkur and tadabbur, which is active contemplation, is not the privilege of an intellectual elite. Okay, this is open to everyone. All of us, when we enter a space, we can feel something. All of us, when we see an art, we can appreciate it. It doesn't matter if you don't know what year it was made. No, if this was made in the 12th century or 15, it doesn't matter. But as a human being, as someone with a heart, you appreciate beauty, right? So this is not for an intellectual elite. And it has to be kind of integrated in your own being. Otherwise, all your prayer and all your dhikr is just, mechanical and ritualized. And you don't reach that understanding of the divine essence. Now, that is the purpose of prayer and dhikr. So as I said, I'm sorry, it will be just one page, one slide on writing. So the Quran, as explained earlier, cannot be imitated. No, it's i'jaz. And then when you read it, there's like two things happening at the same time. On one hand, it's kind of doctrinal. So it's rather dry, no, because it's doctrinal and you try to understand this revealed truth and all of it. And there's a part that's extremely sacred because the divine is present in the words you are reading. So you have this double thing going on kind of inside of you. So the way you enter in contemplation when you pick up the Quran is that you start with a sensory experience. And this is why the Quran is generally, the manuscripts are so beautiful. With the cover, first of all, how it feels, and the leather and the script on top of it. The elegance of the calligraphy when you open it. The texture of the page, the paper, how it feels, maybe it also has a smell. The variation in colors. And of course, the divine sound of its recitation, whether it be silent, meaning in your head as you're reading it, or whether you're listening to it. So the idea of picking up and reading the Quran is all in itself a contemplative experience, no? It has what is called theurgic powers, meaning it makes you kind of understand or be one, no, with the divine reality. I've put you some of the Damascene documents, which are very old documents, first pages of the Quran that made on parchments, which is a skin generally of sheep or goat. One thing, because I always try to insist on that because it's important. If you see this golden line here and this sign here, unfortunately, when you open a Quran that is printed in the 20th and 21st century mostly, this little thing, you find it on every single line, okay? Originally, this sign means stop and reread what is right before and ponder. And this sign here on the left means get out, meaning get out of the book, meaning go away from the literal interpretation or understanding of what you have just read and ponder over it. Okay, this is the original meaning of these little golden stops, which is not after a surah, it's generally after an ayah. It can even be in the middle of an ayah. So basically, the one who is transcribing the Quran, and this is from the 8th century, is telling you, here, stop. But as I said, unfortunately, today, they use it as decoration. So you have it like all around the page. But that's not the first purpose of this golden sign. And I put a line from Sultan Bahu, which is a wonderful Punjabi poet, about the Quran. And he said, the lovers read the word of love and soar in the heavens above, which is what the idea of happening to you when you read the Quran. Now, Bismillah, let's start with the sacred spaces. I started with this beautiful picture. It's not my picture. I was in Iraq during the war, so I couldn't possibly take pictures at the time. This is the Great Mosque of Samarra, and it has a minaret, which is called Malwiya, no? Which means like in spiral. And it's an echo of this ziggurat of ancient Mesopotamia, no? Those big temples from the time of the Sumerians. An absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous place. I want to start with the Kaaba, and then I want to explain to you something. So first, the Kaaba. The idea of the Kaaba is wonderful in the sense that you have the creation of a sacred space between you and the Kaaba. So it's very, very, very far, but actually it's very, very close. You turn to it every day, right? The Kaaba, I mean, God is everywhere. Wherever you turn is his face. So God does not reside in the Kaaba. It's not the house of God. God is beyond any house, beyond any limit, no? But the idea of the Kaaba, wherever it is, because the Kaaba at the end, it's your heart, actually, it's not a physical place. But by creating a kind of a physical focal point for prayer, this orients your mind against ghafla. And this is the only purpose of it. Because God is wise and he knows that as human beings, we're distracted all the time. So in order for you to pray, and this is the only religion in the world that has that, you focus your mind on something physical, extremely far away. And that helps you concentrate and be one with prayer. It is extraordinary. And as I said, you don't have this in other places. And you yourself, when you sit to pray or stand to pray, start to pray, you create that amazing sacred space that can be a gazillion of kilometers, no? But so that's why I say it's far, but yet it's very close. And here I put a lovely quote from the Diwan of Maulana Rumi. which is this whole idea that the Kaaba is actually your heart. By the time the intellect has found the camel for Hajj, love has circled the Kaaba. And I like it very much. So to understand spaces, you have to understand the notion of hal. So hal is a state in Arabic. It's not in terms of spatiality, but more how you feel, okay? And how you perceive space, and obviously how you perceive time. As illustration, I put a picture I took recently of the Sultan Ahmed Mosque, the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, which has just been renovated, by the way. It was reopened just this summer. It's just amazing to see it. I've seen it for many years, and suddenly I see it like all cleaned up, and it's amazing. If you're in Istanbul, you really have to go to the Blue Mosque. So in order to understand sacred spaces, there are three levels: Katif, Latif, Ataf. So Katif means dense. So dense is like when you enter a mall, you know, I don't know, when you enter a bar, when you go into the subway, even sometimes when you go into an airplane, the air feels heavy. Everything is noisy and bothersome. Okay, there's no time for tafakkur. There's no time for contemplation or meditation, or you're just, trying to get your way through. Generally, doesn't smell very nice. It's not agreeable to all of your senses. The other one is latif, is subtle. So subtle, let's say, if you go for a coffee with a friend, it's the difference between going to a mall for a coffee, that would be dense, where there's loud noises, the light is very bright and it's artificial. There are lots of people, a lot of plastic, a lot of bright colors, a lot of things going on. And going to a nice garden or a nice cafe in a garden under a tree with the fountains, birds are singing, you're with your friend, you're having your coffee, you can hear her or him, you're at ease. That's my cat that you're listening to. So this is subtle. No, it's like the difference between being stuck in traffic and walking into a forest. No, basically that's what it is. And then you have suprasubtle. So suprasubtle, altaf, is when you are in harmony with the divine essence, which is called muwafaqa billah. No? This kind of sense of harmony, you feel something is happening to you. No, it's just everything feels right. The space, the time suddenly doesn't matter. No. So sacred spaces, the most beautiful ones, are the ones who should kind of provoke that in you. Now, these three levels of perception of space and time, you have them in other sacred art, especially the dense and the subtle. In Christian Orthodox iconography, you have this idea of the dense and the subtle. I won't go into details. And also in the Buddhist Trikaya, which is the Nirmanakaya, Sambucakaya, Dharmakaya, where you have the three levels of the Buddha that are represented in art. Now, that also correspond to kind of a physical matter, a liquid matter, and a gas matter, if you want. I'm putting it in chemical terms, so you might understand. So what are the elements that define hell? So I've chosen kind of three: light, the notion of infinity, and the idea of, sorry, it's my cat, sensory perfection. And again, the Bibi Khani Mosque in Samarkand, I think it was like minus 25 degrees. And I sat on this bench near this tree at the entrance of the mosque. I think my son was like 3 years old. I told his father, just take him away. I want to spend some time here. There was something very special for me personally about this beautiful mosque. So light and shadow. You can read on the left. I think the best illustration for me is the mihrab. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake. It's mihrab, not mirhab. The mihrab of the Great Mosque of Cordoba. The mosque dates from the 8th century, but the mihrab itself is from the 10th century. Here you have definitely Byzantine art, copy of it, or the style, because you have an arch that is in the form of a horseshoe, which is typical of some of the Byzantine churches. You have the use of the mosaic, but this is not the most important. The most important is that this place, it's not just where you orient yourself towards Mecca, which, by the way, it's not oriented to Mecca. No, it's oriented to the south. Most of the mosques previous to the 10th century were all oriented south, all of them. You look at the ones in Morocco, all of them, it's south. It's not east, which should be east from Cordoba, but it's south, because, and the same as the mosque, the Umayyad mosque in Damascus, which makes sense for Damascus, but it doesn't make sense for the rest. But anyway, there were some changes made later on. But this one, the Mirhab, is oriented south. But the point is, it is at the same time an entrance to infinity, and at the same time a closed room. I'm being repetitive. You have the idea of light and contrast. Just because of the way the arch is done with the horseshoe, you have this idea of depth, whereas it's not really deep, but it gives you this idea of that there's much more to it over there. And through this light, you can go through shadows in order to achieve or to reach, absolute divine light. So it's not just a focus for prayer. All right. It is also, when you go into the mosque, it is the focus of the entire, or the continuation or the ending of the entire construction of the mosque. All the pillars kind of, end up here. Right, let's say where the picture was taken, on top, there's the big dome of the mosque. So everything ends up there. Your thoughts should end up there when you're praying. No? So it's not just the beauty of it. It should awaken something within you by this contrast of light and darkness. It opens into another world. That's what it is. And here I've put this whole idea, a few lines from Mansour al-Hallaj, where he himself talked about this idea of contrast also, and multiplicity, as the Quran does in the ayah that is cited. Darkness and light are not the same. And Mansour al-Hallaj says, earth and fire, then light, coldness, then shade, then sunlight, signs for those of real understanding who find this world of little value. I really like Mansour al-Hallaj. So light and shadows, that one, to understand the idea of hal, of state. I've put you two examples here, one recent and one not so recent, with a quote from Attar. On the left is the beautiful Jame Mosque of Isfahan. I'll show you also another picture from there. This is from the dome. And on the right is a mosque that is in Cologne, which is the central mosque. Both are variation of basically the same thing. How do you let light enter a space and create just a beautiful impression of the space that is around you? And as I said, these are two examples that are quite wonderful. And of course, Attar talks about beauty and light as the creation of God himself, and the kind of the metaphorical representation of divine essence. The second item after light and shadow is infinity. So as we said, no words can express the dimension of God's power, right? Or of God himself. Everything, when we read the Quran, we know is made of contraction and expansion. It's the condition of the human heart. It beats, not contracts and expands, of creation itself, of the spiritual state. One day we're okay, one day we're not okay. Of knowledge. Knowledge is constantly contracting and expanding. Of rizq, as written in the Quran, one day you're rich, the next day you're not. One day, things work out for you very, very well. The next day it doesn't work out. So this is not just some sort of ideas way off the mind. This is things that are actually real. And it is the power of God. So how can you express this nearness and this infinity and this expansion in multiple direction? One of the way you do it in a sacred space is obviously through geometrical patterns, And here I chose, of course, the beautiful Tin Men Mosque which is in the high Atlas in Morocco that had just been renovated and that has been severely damaged, which is a diplomatic way of saying totally destroyed with the earthquake of last September. So this mosque, which dates from the 12th century, here, if you look at the picture, depending how you focus, I mean, you know, if you're there, of course, the impression is better than on a screen. But if you focus on the first arch, whether you focus on the first arch or the third one or the last one, you're always going to get a different impression. And so as you change focus, you get this idea of nearness and expansion, thereby infinity. You have the same feeling, let's say, in the columns in the Great Mosque of Cordoba, also in the Mosque of Granada in El Andalus. No, you get it in many different places. You get it in the Jameh Mosque, also in Isfahan. And it's one of the ways to represent this infinity and this contraction and expansion. This mosque is absolutely, it's a jewel. It's a jewel. They said they were going to, you know, rebuild it again. So inshallah, it will be rebuilt. And the third item to understand this hal is sensory perfection. And here I wanted to give two examples. One is the Taj Mahal. And anyone who's ever been to the Taj Mahal, you cannot be not impressed by it. When I was there, I cried the whole way walking towards the Taj Mahal. Then again, I was 8 months pregnant. So of course, when you're 8 months pregnant, you just cry for everything. But as I was approaching the building through the garden, what amazed me was that I thought it was made of lace and air, but it's actually marble, which is like one of the heaviest, densest material you could ever think of. And here I felt personally, I don't know any of you, this sensory perfection in terms of everything, the air, the sound, you know, with the fountains, even when you go inside, the feel, like when you touch the walls. I mean, this is marble. It's unbelievably beautiful. It's very simple at the same time with all this white. It's very delicate. So you have this delicacy of the touch and, you know, and this dense marble. Just an absolutely amazing place if you take time to kind of, you know, take in the beauty of it, especially at sunset. And as people who've been there, you know, the Taj Mahal changes colors now from purple and red and pink and apricot color as the sun sets. It's absolutely gorgeous. The second place of sensory perfection, of course, nobody can talk about this and not talk about the Suleymaniye Mosque by Mimar Sinan. Well, Sinan, Mimar means architect. Here he spent many years, if not decades, making sure that when one enters the mosque, he has this perfect hal. He calculated everything, how the sound of the ney would be from one of the balconies. And of course, there were no microphones at the time. How the light would enter in winter or in summer so that it's not too hot and not too cold. Now you go and it's heated floors in Istanbul, but you know, normally they didn't have heated floors at the time of Suleiman. He calculated everything. A lot of it is done with the Fibonacci sequence. So that when you enter, and the first time I entered was, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, and I felt this absolute serenity. And I never understood why until I started studying and understanding that he had actually calculated everything for you to feel that way. So this is another way of bringing about this hal, this perfection of state where you might feel serenity. So now what I would like you to do, and I will look at the chat. I haven't been looking at it at all, so that I can see what you're writing.
With your permission, Sister Kenza,
Yeah.
Q&As, I will ask the questions to you from the chat. If it's any other question you want to direct, ask our participants.
Okay. No, it's actually, it's not a question. It's because I want all of you to react to the pictures I'm going to show you. So I'm going to show you different mosques, different spaces. So think about it. And I will leave each of them for a few seconds. Like, what hal do you think? These are just general questions. What hal do you feel? Do you feel, is it dense? Is it subtle? Is it supra-subtle? Do you feel humbled? Is it a place that's grandiose? Is it awe-inspiring? Would you pray in the mosque? Would you actually sit and read the Quran in a mosque? You're going to see 15 very, very different examples. If you go into that space, would you take the time to actually sit down, do dhikr, do tafakkur? Might you have a spiritual experience or not at all? Might you be able to do a munajjat, you know, these whispered prayer to God? Would you achieve uns, which is divine intimacy, where you really feel connected that God is, he's always listening, but you know, you, our humble self, realize that he's actually listening. Other places, it's more a community experience, or so would you rather have this, or would you have an individual one? So I will show you different ones. You can, of course, you know, ask the questions, and at the end we can talk about it. But it would be nice as one way for you to actually participate, to write just whatever you feel in when I show you a place. I showed you first part of my family on my mother's side. This is my father's side, the Saadi dynasty. So these are actually my ancestors. So this is the necropolis where they're buried. It's an absolutely gorgeous place, very refined. It's kind of the height of what is called, you know, the art of North Africa, where you have a blend of the stucco and with the mosaic and with the wood, and it's just a gorgeous place. The light is absolutely beautiful, the way it enters. And so I wanted to share this with that. So you don't have to answer all of the question, but just, I would love to know, some of you, what you feel. And I will try to be very brief on every single one. Okay. And Salat al-Dhuhr, I don't know if any of you can hear that. How much more time do we have? Have fun?
We still have some time. I think people are enjoying the lecture.
Okay, wonderful. Alhamdulillah.
So we have like, we can cut down on the Q&As. So please go ahead.
Okay, shukran. Thank you. So there we go, if I can. So the first one is the Ibn Tulun Mosque in Cairo. You have this minaret, the way we saw it in Iraq. You have to understand, like first time I entered this mosque, this is Cairo. So it's loud, dusty, hot. Suddenly you go into this mosque and you have all this space in front of you, and it's beautiful space. And when you're sitting in the arches, it's so cool, right? And it's not dusty, and it's not noisy, and it's not polluted. And you hear the honking because it's Cairo. You hear it, but you hear it far away. You know, absolutely gorgeous place. Thank you for all your impressions. Next space. This is the Blue Mosque in Mazar. I took this picture, Navroz. Actually, if you look on the left, it's the Navroz flag that is brought up. So this was Navroz right before the Taliban came back into power. Unfortunately, the Taliban have set up a huge barrier all around the mosque, and this is to prevent any attack from Daesh, from ISIS. And also they have forbidden now entrance to women, and it's only on Monday for about 2 hours. So last time I was there, I couldn't go. And one of the thing about this mosque that I liked very much is sometimes we just used to go and spend time there. This is where families gather, and it's a lot of community, and you can, you know, kids would like run around all over the place. It's very clean, it's very safe, it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous environment for that. There's a lovely garden, there are all these, you know, white birds. So unfortunately now it's been kind of closed off. But it's a gorgeous space. And the idea of all the different colors, right? It's kind of the illustration of all the different colors of creation. Again, the idea of multiplicity. No, it's very refined. The blue mosque in Mazar is really, really nice. Yeah, it blends with the sky. Absolutely. Yeah, you get that feeling all over Central Asia. And of course in Iran, no, with this use of the blue. And at the beginning of the Seljuk period, for instance, in Turkey, in what became the Ottoman Empire, also they used a lot of that blue turquoise, and then they turned more into green. If you go to Konya, you have more green than kind of turquoise, and then you have the Ottoman style. Sorry, next one. I have nothing to say about this one. I've never been. Okay, I won't be objective at all. I don't want to go there. This looks like a meringue cake. I don't understand it. The inside, I don't understand it. All that gold and this is a space that doesn't talk to me. Maybe it talks to other people. Bismillah, you're more than welcome. But to me personally, I showed it to my son. My son loved it. So it all depends on people. I don't know what any of you think. Ostentatious. Yeah, it's just, I quite don't understand. It's not pleasing to the eye. I know many of you have been there, obviously, because it's in Abu Dhabi. But it just, I don't understand the proportions, all these little, domes. Okay, it's beautiful. Most probably, maybe we get a different feeling once we're there. So I've only seen it in pictures. Yeah, for me too, it's a meringue cake. All right. That's good. Thank you. This is Jama Masjid in Delhi. Maybe I should have shared some of my pictures. This is a beautiful place. But I wanted to show how it looks like during Eid. So I lived 2 years in Delhi. I've lived a bit all over the world. I lived 2 years in Delhi, and I used to love to go to Old Delhi just because the food is amazing, and the people are very nice. And actually, I've been there, and it was totally empty. And I would sit under this little arch, these arches that you have here. I would just sit there. And my son was born in Delhi, so he wasn't of walking age yet when we were there. But I would just sit with him, and it was very quiet and very serene and very nice. And you had people entering, coming out, sitting, reading the Quran, doing dhikr, smiling at you, salamu alaikum. So it's a completely different feel that I have for this mosque that one might have by just looking at this picture. So what I wanted to show you with that is that you can change the impression that you have of a space. So maybe, the previous mosque, what I looked like a meringue, maybe once I'm there, I would have a different feeling. Happy vibes, I like that. But I really like this mosque when it's empty. When it's like that, I will avoid it at all costs. But it just also the red and, the contrast of the red with the blue sky. And it's just, it's gorgeous. Now, this is the mosque and the shrine of Moulay Idriss Zarhon, and I'm very sorry for the fire extinguisher. I don't use Photoshop or anything. I know there was a way to get rid of it, but I didn't know how to do that. So this is near Meknes in Morocco. It's up on a hill. It's just all the way on top of a hill. And this is where Moulay Idriss Zarhon is buried. So Moulay Idriss was the great-grandson, I think, of Imam Hassan. He was escaping the Umayyads, who were kind of getting rid of a lot of the members of the family of the Prophet. And so he was escaping from the Umayyads, and he arrived all the way to Morocco. He's the one who brought Islam to Morocco. He is the one who kind of started, he's considered the first king of Morocco, and of course the first Muslim king of Morocco. He united a great part of what is Morocco today. He's revered in Morocco. He's very much loved. Also, people come from all over the world to visit this absolutely beautiful mosque, which was rebuilt in the 16th century. So what you see is really not from the 8th century, but there are some parts that remain from, a long time ago. It's a very serene place that has different levels, because you see it like that because it's on top of a mountain. No? So obviously the way the architecture is done, the way the light is, there's a mix of wood, which you don't see here. The fountain in the middle, it's very small. It's not big. There's the madrasa next to it. It's kind of small. I really, really, really like it. Really like it. Next, this is a completely different experience. So this is Nasil Mulk Mosque, very famous, known as the Pink Mosque. You're supposed to go there at Fajr time, or a little bit after Fajr. So then you get, the sun enters one of the rooms in a very special way, and the whole room becomes pink. No? And also the outside, you have a lot of pink mosaics. It's really beautiful. For me, it's very Qajar, now the style, post-Safavid. I was a bit overwhelmed inside, to be frank, and I spent most of my time outside because I just found the patio gorgeous, the use of pink, absolutely beautiful. But it is stunning. It is absolutely stunning. But for me personally, it was just too many colors, too many things happening at the same time when I was indoors. So I went in, stayed a little bit, looked around, looked at the light, reflection, beautiful, very nice, took a few pictures, out. No? But some people really maybe would like to stay inside. It's gorgeous. It's really, really amazing as a place. Yes, Muslim did help the development of stained glass, and it was actually under the Fatimid in Cairo, Egypt of today. They're the ones, and a lot of the a lot of the glass that is used in cathedrals, actually, of the 11th, 12th century, were actually fabricated under Fatimids. A lot of the jars, the crystal jars, because in Europe, they didn't know how to make crystal, but the Fatimids knew. So a lot of the jars that are used for mass, like the very famous Saint Louis, Saint Louis in French, of the first items that were used for mass for the first Catholic kind of king, anointed king, were all made in Cairo. They're today at the Museum of the Louvre. Next, something totally different. I mean, totally different. This is the Sanchaklar Mosque. This is about, I don't know, 20 kilometers outside Istanbul. I'm not sure. I think the Turkish among us can give me a better description. Basically, it's one of the suburbs of Istanbul. But this is modern, obviously. You still have the impression of infinity. The light is very special. What you see on the right, where the man is standing, that's the mihrab. Very modern, very different. Interesting, too big. It's actually not very big, but it's the impression it gives because of the way the space is. Some people love it and some people hate it. So it's interesting how these modern mosques kind of waken in us something like very extreme. Womb Rahma, that's beautiful. Yes, that's actually the idea. This idea that from there you will emerge, different person. The idea that when you go to It shouldn't be the same person when you started as when you say Salam alaikum. It should have a transformative effect. And the space is expected to also have a transformative effect. All right, next. So that's the Umayyad. Obviously gorgeous mosque. But here what I want to talk to you about is light. Unfortunately, or today, mosques are super lit. There's light everywhere. And like, you know, there's no shadow anymore. This mihrab, you were supposed to have an effect of light and shadow. The whole Umayyad mosque is with white marble. You were not supposed to see it that way. The idea is when it was through candlelight, or if you have less light than this, you would have this idea of depth, of reflection of light, of the multiplicity. You know, light would be kind of reflected throughout the walls. But nowadays you enter a mosque and, you know, and it's very, very bright and it just kills the whole atmosphere. So imagine this with less light. It would be so much more welcoming. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous mosque. I think Umayyad is one of the most beautiful places I've been to. It is very big, no, but not that big actually, because everything is kind of rectangle. Now think about this. I've seen pictures, I've never been personally, in some of these mosques in Western Europe that are kind of underground, no, where they use hallways and you know, community rooms to do prayers. And most of them have all these neon lights, one on top of the other, and they're very bright. This is not conducive to nice prayer or tafakkur. All they have to do is shut off all these lights, put some, you know, floor lamps with the yellow light bulb, make it more intimate. So that when you do sujood, when you do, you know, you're less distracted by all this bright light. It's very easy to turn into a place, either from something beautiful to something not really attractive, or the opposite. And for me, it's very unfortunate that the mosques now have like super bright lights. No? Thank you, Jenny, and thank you all for your comment. And you find this in all sacred places now, not just mosques, in churches and everywhere. Now, of course, the beautiful Sham Mosque in Isfahan, mesmerizing. I mean, it's really, really a mesmerizing place. The space, the way it was set up. The photo on top on the right, generally, yeah, they all have carpeting, but this, when it's time between prayers and people walk around, of course, they take it off. But the point on the right, I took this picture in the summer. No, it wasn't summer. It was, well, around Navroz. But the point is that this is the winter prayer room, where the sun enters during winter. And so people can pray there and not freeze because it gets very cold in Isfahan. Gorgeous place. You feel you're kind of walking in this infinite garden. And then sometimes you feel you're kind of walking on clouds in the sky. Yeah, the blue is very relaxing. It's a very nice color, even though it's a cold color. But also here, one of the things about this style of architecture is the proper use of architecture to illustrate light and darkness. No? So every time you kind of walk from one place to another, you feel this thing about, you know, خروج من ظلمات إلى النور, no? To come out of the spaces of darkness, remember it's in the plural, to the light, which is in the singular, which is amazing. And more? I don't know what to make of this. I thinking for mosques in Indonesia. I know some of them, and they tend to be this big building that, you know, I quite don't understand. I don't know what to say. Totally, I don't know. You always have to try to be nice. So I was trying to be nice in my head, and I was thinking, you know, Surat Nahl, you know, the Surat of the bee, because it looks like a beehive. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I mean, it's from meringue to birthday cakes. Thank you. I don't know what it would feel like to pray in there. I just don't know what to make of it. You know, and I mean, in Banda Aceh and stuff, you have some beautiful mosques. Not very original, unfortunately. But you know, they're nice. I like all of your comments. Thank you. So this is the mosque in Xi'an. As I noted at the beginning, remember I told you Islamic art is not ex nihilo, meaning it doesn't come out of nowhere. So it takes from the culture within which it developed. So this is the old mosque, which was remodeled in the 14th century. Remember that Islam arrived in China very, very early. For me, it was a very strange experience, okay, to pray there, just because the surrounding was just so different from what I'm used to, and I've traveled, you know. The garden is very much a Chinese garden, but it is set up like a Persian garden, you know, with the 4 alleys and the fountain, except it has a Chinese touch. The hallway as well. It was a nice experience because when I walked in, I was with my son, and I think my son was 8 at the time. We obviously don't look Chinese. So the imam actually came and greeted me and in English. And then he asked, you know, "Tahki Arabic, do you speak Arabic?" And I said, yes. So he started speaking Arabic. Then he invited, it was Salat, I think it was Dhuhr or Asr or something. So he invited me to pray. Women are not completely separated from men, which I thought was wonderful because women are always kind of sent to the Buni land to pray, which is very unfortunate. So you felt you were really part of a community. And then we recited Al-Fatiha together with the Imam, and a lot of people came and spoke to me. And it was very nice. It was more the community than the kind of pagoda kind of thing. So you can have beautiful experiences in these kinds of places. It is quite beautiful. And the pine trees all over, which is very much, you know, of Persian inspiration. And also of Chinese, because in both Persian culture and Chinese culture, the pine tree is a symbol of wisdom, of old age, and also of elegance, like the cypress, because it goes up to the sky. Thank you for the remark on the traditional Javanese mosque. And then this one. Wait, if you could hold for a second. Somebody just. Sorry, somebody was ringing. This is Beit al-Ruf Mosque by an architect, Marina Tabassum, in Bangladesh. So you can have very different opinions about this. When I showed it to my son, he's 15, he said it looked like the well of Yusuf. I personally, I really, really like it. Oh, there you go. You see, like Yusuf's well, which is exactly what my son said. But actually think about it. It's Dhaka. So it's humid, it's crowded, it's noisy, it's polluted, it's hot as hell. And then you go in here and it's quiet and it's cool and it's environmentally friendly. There's no air conditioning. There's a little bit of light. This is the mihrab, and it's calculated so that the light actually goes in at certain ways in different times of day and different times of prayer. So think of the environment outside of it. No? Don't, yes, thank you, Esther. You know, don't just think of it like, yes, of course, you know, the well. So when I explained to my son that it was, yeah, maybe useful, but it's the environment around it is so different. You go in there, you can breathe. You know, I mean, if you've ever been to Dhaka or that part of the world, you know how heavy it is, the humidity, and the heat. Uh, I don't know if the light tells the prayer time. I'm not sure about that.
Sister Kenza, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Just mindful of the time. I mean, we
Yeah,
enjoy the
we're finishing now.
presentation to the
Yeah,
below. How many more pictures do you have? Because I want you to do all of them, by the way.
one.
So that's why I'm one more. Okay.
Okay, I'll just do one and then we're done. Okay, thank you. This is the Jamia Mosque. We've seen it before, so I can jump that. And I wanted to end with this, because this is where I want to end the rest of my days. If I could just die there, I think I'll be the happiest person on earth. This is the Shingeti Mosque in Mauritania. It has no carpet. It's all sand, the way it must have been at the time of the Prophet. It's very simple. It's very hot in Mauritania and very dry, but when you enter there, it's kind of very cool. And for me, this is one of the most beautiful places. It's not ostentatious, uh, but it's just for me, as I said, I would just like to be there and die there. That's what I would like. So thank you very much for all of you for your patience and for listening to me.
Jazakallah khairan, dear sister Kenza. MashaAllah, MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Tabarakallah, Jazakallah khairan. Barakallahu fiki. This was an amazing
Thank you.
presentation. Honestly, it gave a lot of sakina and also ease to our hearts and souls. And I think I speak for all the participants and myself, of course, that we really appreciate it. And inshallah, we will invite you soon again to do a round 2 of this beautiful presentation. And I recommend all of you, dear brothers and sisters, to really check the presentations that we have done in this theme on ISIP's YouTube channel. Previously, we did a similar presentation with Professor Francesca from Italy, one of our colleagues, and also with Dr. Samir Mahmoud. So essentially, please check, and we will invite our beloved sister, Dr. Kenza, soon to do round 2, inshallah. And as I mentioned to all of you who registered for the session, and please register to the session. We will share all the links to the YouTube channel, the presentation of Dr. Kenza, and all other resources to all of you who have registered for the session today through email, inshallah. This will be done within a couple of days or week, inshallah. So stay tuned. With regards to the task force that we're establishing, it will be related to sacred arts and connection to health and well-being. And this is something that we will announce soon. And inshallah, Dr. Kenza will be with us in that journey as well. I also want to highlight that we're planning soon to establish physical venues and retreats and workshops. And one of the themes we will work on will be contemplative arts and sacred arts and architecture, inshallah. So stay tuned through our newsletter, through our website, through our WhatsApp groups and social media handles. And I will ask my colleagues, Sister Nadira, Sister Tri, and Sister Mediha, if you guys can share all the resources again, once more, in the Zoom chat. And I want to thank all of my colleagues today, Sister Nadira, Sister Tri, and Sister Mediha, and rest of the team for the amazing work that you guys are doing. We have a couple of questions, by the way, Sister Dr. Kenza. Let me just go to the questions, please, so that we can perhaps at least answer a couple of them. And for all of you, please stay tuned, and Dr. Kenza will be with us. She is an integral part of our movement. I'm very honored to have her with us to learn from her wisdom and a vast amount of knowledge and expertise. So the first question is from Brother Shaber. Dr. Kenza, he is asking, what do the various designs of the muqarnas symbolize? Just asking here so I don't forget.
Okay. I didn't show any muqarnas, really, which is kind of what you have in the corner in ceilings. They look like a beehive. And this again is this idea of depth and contrast and light and infinity. And through the patterns, you should be able to kind of reach, your own depth. Or elevate. It's at the same time this idea of elevation, which basically elevation means you go further into your heart. So it's an illustration of that. I mean, muqarnas, you can talk about it for hours. So I'm really, really summarizing it in one sentence. But it's an architectural device, just so that you know, so that you don't have an empty corner. That's the idea also.
All right. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Dr. Kenza. The next question is from Sister Khurshid, one of our great colleagues. So it's about futua. Actually, maybe this is for another day. Futua Moroba, how is it written in Arabic? Would love to understand the concept deeply. So essentially, if I may, Sister Kenza, Dr. Kenza, we're establishing the Futua Academy of Sacred Manhood and Sacred Womanhood. And Sister Khurshid, you're part of that. So inshallah, we will discuss this more thoroughly there. But would you like to answer it briefly, Dr. Kenza?
Oh, well, I mean, Murua is just, spiritual battle. That's basically what it means. And Futua is this idea of reaching Marwa, which is the heroic soul, where you kind of integrate within you some of the most beautiful attributes of God, such as compassion, tolerance, mercy, love, politeness, etc. And through that battle, through that Murua, where you disperse darkness and ugliness and hatred and intolerance. So basically, that's exactly what it means, I guess. I mean, it's very simple.
MashaAllah. It was very beautifully explained, by the way. So alhamdulillah, you made it simple, which is amazing. Thank you, Dr. Kenza. So we have a couple of questions from Shabir actually. So one question is, can a sacred space be useful in the integration of an individual, especially when they suffer psychologically duress for extended periods? Have any studies been done, or would the ideas of studying this aspect defeat the whole purpose of the qualitative experience? That's a good question.
Well, it's a very good question. I don't think there've been any kind of experiment per se, but it's also a lot of this is very common sense. I mean, if you have somebody who's gone through traumatic experience, you want to take that person into a space where he will feel secure. And the more there are sensory distractions, the less secure you feel, because you want to be back within yourself. So if it's very bright, or if it's very loud, or it's just for instance, as Brother Jamaldin mentioned, I counsel people who are on the neurodivergent spectrum. And one of the first thing I tell them when it comes to children, or even to themselves if they're adults, is to make a very simple bedroom, without, sheets that have cars on it and that are orange and red. No, put white sheets, soft colors, simplicity. Take down the things from the wall, less toys, an environment that is serene, that is nicer. Okay, a sacred space, as we've seen, doesn't need to have a cross, doesn't need to have Arabic calligraphy. You make it yourself. So the idea is that if you are bothered, or you're going through a very rough day, or you're having a crisis, or you've gone through trauma, once you go into that room that is simple, okay? I'm not saying like a hospital room, no? It still has to be human, a nice carpet or something, a few touches of color, but not, once you enter this bed that has white, soft, nice sheets, it makes a massive difference. It just gives you sakina, gives you serenity immediately. And it changes the way you feel when you enter that space. And it has a healing capacity to it.
SubhanAllah, SubhanAllah. I appreciate this nasiha, actually, Dr. Kenza, because I think that sometimes we make things very simplistic, and sometimes we make it less simplistic. It's all about making things easier than what it is, but also to do it in a way that is evidence-based and according to a holistic approach when it comes to dealing with, for instance, children who have neurodiversity. And that holistic approaches tend to be declined in the Western way of looking at health. And I think also from the way that you're describing it is that actually children with neurodiversity, they see things, the subtle realities that maybe people that are so-called normative and they're, never that are never normal or whatever we want to call it, do not see the subtle changes or the subtle things. So actually, they are more connected in a sense to fitra and seeing the different aspects of God's creation than what we are, perhaps. Allahu alam. So I appreciate you actually sharing these reflections with us, because it's very important that we also involve colors and also the interior design of rooms as a way to cater to not only people with neurodiversity, but generally. Like look at our schools today. Like, do you feel inspired in studying at the modern universities today? Do you feel inspired to feel health when you go to the modern hospitals today? You get more sick going to the hospital, in all honesty. So it's not the Darul Shifa anymore. It's the place for becoming even more sick. So I think that what you have done with your beautiful presentation is to bring the holistic approach of the inner, the batin, as you said, in relationship to our health from the aspect of arts. And we appreciate that. There are a couple of more questions. I'll just finalize with this question here. It's also from Shabir. Why do the geometric patterns stop at about chest height and then it's plain white in Moroccan architecture?
Actually, I don't know. All I know is it's just easier to take care of it. I think it's more than because if you have the whole wall, and in terms of heat, humidity, cold, etc., it's a different way of dealing with it. And these are very, very small pieces, so you cannot have it above a certain height, the way the technology is in Morocco. Now, you do find it in mosques in Central Asia and in Iran and in India. So maybe my explanation is not good enough. But for what I understand from what they've explained to me is the pieces of mosaic are thicker. So the chance that they fall, the higher they are because of the weight, is higher. So they just leave it like that. That's one explanation I've had. But it's a technical thing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This is a follow-up question. Does this mean that chandeliers are not part of Islamic architecture?
Everything is part of Islamic architecture. I mean, you cannot say something is not part of Islamic architecture. It gives light. So whichever way you want to put the light on, a chandelier, a candle, a floor lamp, Bismillah, go ahead. So be careful. Islamic architecture doesn't exclude anything, and it doesn't include everything. Yeah. All right? It's whatever you feel will help you in your ubudiyah, no, in your faith, in becoming present. If it's a chandelier or a candle, everything's welcome.
Mashallah. And I think we will conclude with that. Everything is welcome. And if I may say, we don't include everything. We don't exclude everything. It's, as I mentioned, as you mentioned, and as I try to follow, it's to bring that into the lens of Quran and Sunnah. So we filter things according to Quran and Sunnah, and whatever it's feasible or permissible, we will utilize, inshallah. So this is the beauty of curiosity and looking at what does Quran and Sunnah tells us with regards to beauty, for instance, and the impact on our soul and our well-being. I want all of us, brothers and sisters, to give a round of applause to Dr. Kenza. Thank you so much for giving out of your precious time. This is
my pleasure.
Really a post-Ramadan gift to us, actually. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So it was a joy, I think, for all of us. I want to thank all of our brothers and sisters who joined today. All of your questions, reflections, engagement was so valuable. We really appreciate all of your efforts, all of your contributions. May Allah bless all of you. We're very honored to have you all with us, dear. Excellent brothers and sisters. Your contributions, your reflections, and your knowledge and insights are what makes us thrive as a global community, inshallah. And as I mentioned before, I want to thank my beloved colleagues, Sister Nadira, Sister Tri, and Sister Mediha, and rest of the excellent team, and Sister Ayman and Sister Dania for the amazing work you guys are doing in organizing these venues as well. We will see each other the last Saturday of the month, and then we will invite Sister Abida from the UK. She will speak about addiction from an Islamic psychological point of view. So I really recommend you guys to join that lecture. Very important topic indeed. We will inform you guys about the time and the date, and the date you guys know, last Saturday of the month, how to register on all of our WhatsApp group and social media handles, inshallah. Please register yourself for this lecture if you want to receive the slides or the lecture, the recording, and all other resources that might be a benefit for you all. And if you guys are interested in joining our task force for sacred arts, please email us at contact@isip.foundation. We will also inform throughout all of our channels, inshallah. So once more, Dr. Kenza, thank you so much. And we are close colleagues, so we will meet soon again, inshallah. And thank you for the service you're doing at the neurodiversity team, also in the trauma healing tracks. You guys can connect with Dr. Kenza also in our healing circles that we do. So she's been so generous to conduct many of them for us, and even working with breath works and a lot of other things. So mashallah, you're going into the path of our traditional scholars, Dr. Kenza, being a polymath, mashallah. So that's amazing. And by the way, we're also establishing, and this is something related to Dr. Kenza, we're establishing the Al-Balkhi Journal of Islamic Psychology, which will be a journal under the Al-Balkhi Institute, which is ISIP's research center. So if you guys are interested to write articles or doing research, please reach out to us as well through email at contact@isip.foundation. So without